Now, first of all, I'm by no means saying that these are the only scales you should use or get to know or whatever. But what I am saying is that these are the scales that you will see most players using most of the time, from B.B. King to Eric Clapton to, Steve Ray Vaughan, whoever. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't learn all the fingerings for the minor pentatonic scale. You should know how to play the pentatonic scale in the standard and most used box. You should also know how to play it here. Right? Those are the different fingerings for the same A minor pentatonic scale. I'll address that in a different lesson though, okay, down the line, because the truth of the matter is unless you're a country player or a jazz guy or maybe a studio musician or whatever, you're probably not going to use those scales as often as you're going to use the ones that I'm going to cover here, okay? You can pull up videos of classic guys, like I say, from Clapton to Stevie Ray Vaughan to whoever, and if you learn some of their solos, you'll quickly discover that these are the 3 or 4 fingerings that they use, 5 fingerings that they use most of the time when they're constructing their solos. So I'm already talking too much, but it's really important. All right, so here we go. The first scale that you obviously want to know, and a lot of you probably already know it, is that A minor pentatonic box. And if we want to make that a blues scale, we add the flat 5, the blue note, to it. And we add it in both octaves. Okay, that single little box position is probably the most used scale and probably the most important one when it comes to blues playing. It's just it's just a go-to scale for blues players. Now, the next thing you want to do, and the way I show it to my students, is you want to know the box position for sure, right? Because there's a lot of classic stuff in that, Chuck Berry, everything else, all down the line. But then you want to know how to spread that scale out across the guitar neck. And that's exactly what you see these guys doing, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you want to stretch the scale out and play it in a linear form. We're going to cover that same scale, which is just 6 notes, right? A, C, D, E flat, E, and G, and you just play it in a round of octaves. So we're going to play it from here to here, okay? Now, as I said, a G note is part of the scale. So what you do is you start with the root note. This puts you in the key of A. You're at the 5th fret on the 6th string. Now if you move a whole step to your left, 2 frets, that's a G note. So we're not playing in a different key now. We're staying in the same key, but we're sort of grabbing the notes of the scale and spreading it out in a linear way, long form, across the guitar neck. So you move a whole step from the root note, and that's a G note, and you play 3 to 5. And then on the next string, we're going to play 3, 5, 6, 7. And you can play it like that, kind of walking across it with your ring finger. Or you can play it like this. However you choose to play it is fine. In fact, you'll probably play it in different ways depending on what you're chasing, okay? So there's 3 notes on the top string, on the 6th string. And then there's 4 notes on the next string. Okay? Then what we do is place your first finger on the 5th fret on the next string down, the D string, and parrot that fingering. So we did 2 notes, slip down to the next string, and play 4 notes. Then for the next string, because of the way the guitar is tuned, we want to slip up to the 8th fret on the B string, the 2nd from the bottom string, and again, parrot that fingering. So now you've got the blues scale in the box position. And you've got it in the long form. So now what you want to do is you want to take that scale and you want to put it up here. We've got the scale with the box position and the long form, the linear way of playing it. We're covering from the 3rd fret to the 12th fret, okay? So we want to start covering the rest of the guitar neck, or just moving the scale up to the higher octave. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this long form scale and we're going to raise it up an octave, okay? So just to keep it recognizable, there's other notes floating around that we can grab, but this is a really simple lesson to just show you what I think are probably the most important 4 or 5 scales for you to know, at least initially, okay? So we're starting on the 10th fret on the A string, and we're playing 2 notes, 10 to 12. And just like we did before, we're going to slip down to the next string and play 4 notes. And that's the octave to this. All right, we move to the G string on the 12th fret, and again, we play 2 notes. And then again, because of the way the guitar is tuned, we want to slip up to the 13th fret, but that's where we're going to play the 4-note run. And then 15 to 17 on the bottom string. Now, once you get to the last note of that particular fingering, we're up on the 17th fret. Switch to your first finger and visualize the box being played from there. Okay, so now you have 4 different fingerings essentially covering a couple of octaves for the blues scale. And so by knowing those scales really well and, just being creative, learning as many licks as you can, discovering totally by accident as many licks as you can really do a lot with just that basic information. But there's one more scale that I want to bring into the fold, particularly because this lesson is geared toward the blues. And that would be the major pentatonic scale, okay? Because the A major pentatonic scale is also used, maybe not as much as the scales that I just covered, but it's also used. I mean, you'll hear Clapton do it in Crossroads. Jimmy Page shotguns it in the middle of rock and roll. I mean, just about every blues and blues rock player will use that major pentatonic at times. And the easiest way to look at it is like this. If you start on an A note and play that box position like what we were talking about, not the blues scale, but just the minor pentatonic. Okay? Now, if you count down 4 frets, starting from the note you're on, the root note, 1, 2, 3, 4, and play that same exact box shape. You are now literally playing the A major pentatonic scale. But the root note is still that. We're including this note on the top string at the 2nd fret because that is part of the scale. The scale is A, B, C sharp, E, and F sharp. And that's an F sharp note. And you just continue through the octave like that. A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp. So I always tell my students, if you want to jump into the major pentatonic, inside the blues that you're playing, the major blues that you're playing, Just think of it in that term, okay? Just think of it as being 4 frets down from where you're at. It's that easy to remember, okay? And you'll hear Clapton do that in Crossroads and Jimmy Page and in rock and roll. But you want to see it in the way that they do, so to speak, okay? There's no rules here. Just throwing this out there and sort of sharing with you the way I've shown it to my students over the years. You know, you can hear Jimmy Page kind of shotgun it in Houses of the Holy, where he just throws in some almost country flavored licks because the major pentatonic sounds great with that kind of thing. You could be playing a standard blues. It just gives it that kind of flavor. Flavor meaning the sound that you're hearing right there. But you also want to know how to connect this scale to what you're doing in a linear way, okay? So I'd like to show you how to do that as well. So if you've got the box position scale for A, take off from that root note again, and you're going to play 3 notes on the top string, on the 6th string. And then again, from right where you're at, move to the next string and play 2 notes. So just like the long form of the A blues scale, it has a shape and a pattern to it. Move to the next string right where you are, 3 notes. Next string, 2 notes. And as always, slip up a half step for the B string, 3 notes, 2 notes. And you'll notice those are the exact same notes as this box position down here. Okay, now when you get there, just like we did with the blues scale, slip to your first finger and visualize that pentatonic box again. So you've got a few different fingerings for the major pentatonic as well, and that linear one in the middle, I think is extra important to know because you can add that in with your blues scale wherever you feel the need to do it. And you can hear the difference between the two flavors of blues playing. That major pentatonic kind of gives you a different feel, a different vibe to the blues that you're playing. And it can be really nice, quite tasty actually. You can use it on all 3 chords. You know, you can use it on the 1, the 4, and the 5. But I've always found that it's especially useful on the 4 chord, for instance, because it really captures the D chord. And then when you return to the A chord, you know, it's nice to just blues it up like that. There's no rules to the game, you know, and this is by no means the only scales that you want to know. I've got a couple of other lessons online which utilize these scales, of course, because they are that important to blues playing. But the lessons also touch on using double stops, adding thirds to the blues scale, and chord scales themselves. So you might want to check that out as well when you're ready to move on, right? But these scales, you know, in answer to the question, can you do a blues lesson showing the most important scales to learn? I think by far these are the most important scales to learn, and in this way. Yes, there are multiple pentatonic shapes and all of that. That's for a different lesson. This is just to run down the scales that I think are the most important and that you'll see a lot of your favorite players using. You've got that box position, the long form, the octave to the long form, and the octave to the box. And you would be amazed at how many great guitar solos you've heard, classic guitar solos, that have utilized just that information right there. you know. Now there's so much that you can do, of course, but that's what the other lessons are for, on the double stops and adding chord scales and all the rest of it. So I urge you to check those out as well. But get to know these, 6 or 7 fingerings here for the blues and pentatonic scales and the major pentatonic, and just, get yourself some backing tracks going and just jam out on these things. You'll find your way with them pretty quickly, and you'll start to recognize them in some of your favorite players, I'm sure. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the lesson, and peace to everyone, and take care, and we'll see you soon.